Hello everyone, today we'll continue learning Python and today I'll show you how to use or how to store keys, passwords and global values in Python projects. So let's start. But before we start that video, I recommend you subscribing to my Telegram channel. You will find lots of materials, modules, libraries, examples and tasks on Python in my Telegram channel. Also, I post all the announcements there, so if you want to understand what will happen to the channel in the near future, you can go here. And I respond to comments much faster than I do it on YouTube. So subscribe to my Telegram channel, link in the description down below. Let's imagine that we have a Telegram bot or any API key, password, anything that needs to be stored in Python or used in Python. For example, we have API key. API key equals to, for example, that row string. Okay, and let's create a function send message function that prints our API key, or let's just simply print it. So imagine that you use that API key to work with an external API. Let's run our main.py script. As you can see, everything works fine. But now we have one problem. What's that problem? We store our secret API key, even if it's a public one, we store it inside of a string. And why is that a problem? Imagine that you have a GitHub account and you post or push or publish your project, your test project, or any project to your GitHub account. And then your GitHub account gets hacked. And you have API keys, email passwords, your ID, your TIN, everything inside of that Python script. Hacker can go to the script, can hack not only your GitHub, but your email, everything actually, everything. And that's a problem because everyone who has your source code, your friend, can work with that, can do whatever he or she wants with that API key. Because we store that API key inside of a string. Well, you can say that we can remove that API key every time we push, so we update our project on our GitHub account or on GitLab or our version control system. Well, yes, you can do that, but there is one problem. If you accidentally forget to paste that API key or to remove that API key when you push your project, again, everyone can see your API key. That's a problem. And actually, every time you update your project, every time somebody gets your project to his or her computer, he or she needs to put every API key inside of every script, and that's a problem. Now I want to tell you how to properly store passwords, keys, and global values in Python. Let's start. By the way, global secure values. So for example, if you have, I don't know, result dir, where you store your results or where you store your photos, you don't need to use that approach. You can just write results. Or if, for example, in Django you have static root, you don't need to write what we'll write soon. You just need to write static, like that. Because my method, or not mine, I did not invented it, that method works only for secure values, like passwords, API keys, and so on. Okay, so if you have these values, you can store them in raw strings, because this is just variables and so on. Let's first of all create settings.py file, settings.py, like that. And let's copy our API key from here. Why do we need to do that? Because if you have all of your keys and passwords inside of a file that contains all of them, that's a better approach, because now you can see everything you need. For example, if you have 10 Python files, so main.py, bot.py, api.py, test.py, and so on, it's better for you to store your keys inside of that settings.py file. And if you work with Django, you know that Django has its own settings.py file, which is created by default, because that's a better approach. And in every project, the first thing you need to make is settings.py file. Okay, so we have settings.py where we store all of our keys. Let's create, for example, database password key equals to what? To admin, because we don't have any other passwords for our databases. or for admin pages. Okay, so now we can see all of our keys, but there is a problem. Still, we store all of our keys inside of raw strings. And settings.py file is normally pushed to GitHub or GitLab account, to version control system. Because of that, everybody still can see these keys. Okay, it's much more easier for you to remove these keys now, because all you need to do is put empty strings or empty integers or zeros or none values to every key. But still, every time you get your project back, you need to put all of them. And still, you can forget to remove these values, and everybody can see your values. Still, you use raw strings, and that's bad. What I need to do instead of that? Instead of that, I need to use environment variables. So I think if you work on Linux, you already know about these things, but I'll talk about them right now, or I'll explain them right now. So what is environment variable? So as you can see, I am on Windows because I have that activate Windows right here. What I can do, I can search for environment, edit the system environment variables. Press right here, open it, and we have environment variables right here. So let's open that, and as you can see, we have lots of values. So what are these values? These values are variables for your whole system. So for example, Java home shows where our Java is located. PyCharm shows where PyCharm is located. GDAL data, it's for Postgres extension, and so on. We have variables for our system. We can edit, delete, and make new variables right here. So what I can do right now, I can create API key variable and put it inside of here. We have an advantage if we do it that way. We have a big advantage if we will do it that way, but still we have lots of cons. So what's the advantage? The advantage is that we do not store our keys inside of our Python files. We store them in our system. But the main con is that if you have 2 or 3 projects in Python, and every project needs an API key today or database password today, what you should do is make long names. So for example, API key, project 1, project 2, project 3, project 4, and that's not convenient at all. Instead of that, I don't want you to create these environment variables, because again, environment variables which you create in that window are for your whole system, for your whole computer. And that's bad because we can run multiple projects on one computer in Python. Because of that, I'll close these windows. I just showed you that window so you can understand what are environment variables. So again, environment variables are for your whole system. That's it. Just variables for your whole system. And every environment variable is stored inside of a string. So if you, for example, put 1 to 3 right here, still it's a string. Environment variables I have just shown to you are for your whole system. And if we want to run multiple projects, we need to have a method which kind of separates variables for different projects. But now let's just talk how we can use these environment variables inside of our settings.py file or any Python script. We can import OS library, and inside of that OS library we have os.environ. We have environ B, but it does not work on Windows. I think it's just for Linux, and environ B is for binary data. But again, we'll just use environ. So what is that? Let's run it. API key is not defined. Why? Yes, because we don't. What we should do here is import from settings. Let's import our API key, and then let's run our settings.py file instead of main.py. What we can see right here, we can see all of our environment variables. So these are global ones. Let's, for example, search for Java home. As you can see, I have my Java home right here, Java home variable. And as you can see, environ or OS environ class or object stores these variables inside of what? Inside of a dictionary. And because of that, what we can do is use brackets, then I forgot how to call them, Java home. So string Java home. Let's run it. And as you can see, it gives me my Java home value. So again, OS environ stores your values inside of a dictionary. And what we can do? We can use get, for example, get Java home or print no Java home. like that. Let's put another curly bracket or another parenthesis, and let's run. As you can see, it gives me my Java home, but if I, for example, put java home, Java to home, for example, no Java home. As you can see, we have dictionary as OS environ. That's great, but how we can create a value for our API key? So again, what we can do is use os.environ from API key. But if I run it right now, it will give me key error because I don't have my API key yet. What we can do is use os.environ from API key equals to, for example, my API key, like that. Let's run. As you can see, everything works fine. And that's great. We use OS environ, and thank you for the watching. Good luck. But no. What is our problem? Our problem is in that line, in the third one. We still put raw strings, and actually we can even omit OS environ, because why do we even need it? We assign OS environ and then we immediately use it. I can just copy string from here and put it as an API key. Still, we use OS environ. And if we remove it, we don't have our API key because, again, I said, you have multiple projects on your computer, and you should not put global environment variables to every project in Python, because that's just not convenient. What we should do instead? Instead, we should create .env file. And by the way, if you create API key, let's run it now. As you can see, everything works fine. We don't have an error. But if I comment it out and run it again, key error. Why? Because when we use OS environ, we create environment variables just for that Python script. So we create just like a session where we have our API key. So if I'll go to main.py and I'll import OS, then I'll put os.environ from API key, like that. Let's run it again, but main.py instead of settings.py. As you can see, we still receive our API key. But if I'll comment it out, I'll not receive anything. I'll receive key error. Because again, when you assign your environment variables like that, you assign them just for the session. Okay, just for your Python script session. Let's remove that and let's just print API key, because again, we don't really need to use OS environ outside of our settings.py file. Because again, we assign all the settings inside of that file. And we just use like raw Python values in our other scripts. Now let's run. As you can see, we have an error. How we can solve that problem? We can create .env file. .env. So as you can see, we kind of assign file with no name and .env extension, because settings is the name of the file and .py is an extension. But here we just assign .env. Actually, it's a common name for that file, but you can call it whatever you want. And what we write inside of here? API key equals to our API key. So as you can see, API key equals to the value. If I run my program now, I will still receive an error. But But what is the problem? The problem is that we don't read our .env file. And how we can do that? Well, the most simple way is to just open a file. .env file. Let's read that file as file, and let's put, for example, file.readline. File.readline. Line equals to file.readline. And let's print our line. Line, like that. Let's run. As you can see, we receive an error because we don't yet assign our OS environ variable, but what we can see is that print line gives us API key equals to our API key. And as you can see, if we look at our code, at our settings.py right now, or at our main.py right now, we don't see the key in a string. We don't see our passwords in a string, because instead of database password, we can use OS environ database password, like that. And by the way, it's better to call your OS environment variables like you call your variables inside of Python, because it's just more convenient for other programmers. But I will talk about database password later, because that's kind of an additional value, and I'll show you why it's better to use a library. A library for .env files. But now we just open our .env file, we read it, and we save it to file. If you don't understand Python context managers, so context manager is with something as something. We just open the file and we close it on the 6th line. That's it. And our file inside of that file variable. So I read my line. Here is my line, and what I can do. os.environ from line dot find equals sign equals to line from line dot find equals sign plus 1 and semicolon. So what is that? By the way, now if we run our program, so that's our key. Let's copy it. Let's run it again. As you can see, that's the key our main.py script puts or prints to us, and as you can see, they are similar. But we don't see that key anywhere inside of our .py files, because it's right here. If I'll call hello, or if I'll replace it with hello, as you can see, hello as the main.py key. And that's much more better, because now we don't see our keys. Nobody knows about our passwords, API keys, and secure values. And what is that? What that line of code does? We assign OS environ with key line from 0, so from 0 to line find equals to that equals. So we get API key, we get our key like that. Then our key, OS environ key, equals to line from equal sign plus 1 to the end of the string. So we use slices right here. So we get that equal sign right here plus 1 because I don't want to include it inside of my API key, and then to the end of the string, to the end of the string. And as you can see now, what we have API key as from here as the key for our OS environ, and we have hello as the value for that API key. That's a great approach, but there is a problem. By the way, now we don't have any problems because we have no plain string values inside of our settings or main.py files. Well, you can say that we have the same API key equals to hello inside of our .env file, but .env files or any environment files are not sent to the GitHub, GitLab, or any version control systems. So nobody sees them. And because of that, what you can do is you can, by the way, if you don't know how to ignore your files, so how not to send your files to your version control system, what you can do is create file .gitignore and then put .env right here. Now when I push my code, .env file is not included into my commit. And what we should include is venv, so Python virtual environment, because nobody includes that. It's just redundant. But still, as you can see now, we don't have anything. We don't have any keys in our Python code. And if I delete so I don't push my .env file to GitHub. If somebody hacks my GitHub, he or she cannot access that API key. Why? Because .env file is not sent. It does not exist. The only thing hacker can do is copy my code and put his or her own API key. API keys, passwords, and so on. But because of that, my values are secure. That's great. That's just great. So as you can see, I do not have my plain text, my plain values anywhere. And again, .env file is not pushed to GitHub, to GitLab, or any version control systems. And because of that, nobody can see your keys. But there is a problem, because if I assign database password as OS environ password and I put database password equals to admin because we don't have any passwords. Instead of that, let's run it again. As you can see, we don't have database password. Why? Because we don't have, because of our code. We get only one value. Well, we can put while and so on, but again, we have libraries. It's Python language. And because of that, what I want you to do is open up your terminal and write pip install python .env, like that. As you can see, my requirement is already satisfied, so that library helps you to read .env files. Then what I should do is import .env and then .env.load.env file, and we need to provide the name of the file inside of here. So as you can see, I import .env. Again, it's a separate library. It is not included inside of your Python by default. Then .env.load.env, and I provide just the raw string. Now let's run. As you can see, everything works fine because every value from our settings or from our .env file is read, and we assign them right here. Let's go to main.py, print API key, and our database password, which I, of course, need to import from settings.py. As you can see, hello admin. That's great. That's just great. But I want to show you an additional way of passing these variables. So what if you have a default value? For example, you have timeout. It's great to have your timeout inside of .env file, because when I created my settings.py file, I said that every setting is inside of that file. Of course, if I have, for example, media folder as media, that is not bad, because media folder is just a path to the folder. But if I have passwords as raw values, this is bad. And because of that, we created .env file. And what I can do is I can use timeout as 10, for example. When I go to settings.py, I want to use os.environ.get, because again, that's a dictionary and we can use get to get the timeout. Let's copy that, let's go to main.py and let's print our timeout right here. Timeout, let's run. As you can see, hello admin 10. But if you want to have a default value, what you can do is os.environ get timeout and then default value, for example 10. Let's run it again. As you can see, hello admin. No, let's put 100, for example. Hello admin 10, but if I remove timeout from my .env file, for example, I forgot to put my timeout, I should not receive an error because I have default value, which is 100. And that's just better. So if you have default values, but again, please do not assign default values for API keys or database passwords, because if you have, for example, db password like that, and then you assign your raw string, that's bad, because still everybody can see that. But if you have values that make no harm, for example, timeout, then you can put default value right here. And that's just better, because now our project is secure and every password, every key, every API key is secure inside of our .env file. That's just it. Again, don't send your .env files to your GitHub. Don't put your keys, your passwords inside of plain strings, and use environment variables. By the way, .env is just a library that I use. You can use whatever library you want, or you can use no libraries, because as you can see, as I showed to you, you can just read that file by yourself and yeah, use no separate libraries. But that's all I wanted to tell you. Thank you for the watching and good luck.